All right. Unfortunately, the time has come for the final session of the live streaming sessions for the bootcamp. But as previously mentioned, this will not be the end of the bootcamp. There's still the evaluation period, the admission deadline, which is in a bit less than 2 days, and then the final ceremony of awarding the best reports. And we will be also going through them next week on Wednesday, the top 10. But all about that, I will tell you a bit in details. Let me switch on the slides because this is the first session that I will talk. So I have also prepared a PowerPoint, which is unusual for me in this event. Okay, now you see. So we will have a short look about the key takeaways from the bootcamp. We're going to go through some highlights. We're going to do a little bit of data of what we were having during this bootcamp, and we will go through the next of the things so that we will end the bootcamp not today, but we will end the bootcamp in 1 week. So we had the pleasure of hosting 23 speakers. There were 23 speakers over this period of 2 weeks from more than 10 countries, and 10 countries, not just only countries being very close to each other, but from Thailand, we traveled virtually to Canada, to USA, to the UK, to Russia, the Netherlands, Hungary, Estonia, Lithuania, and Latvia. And we were on our way to travel to New Zealand, but unfortunately that was the only way that our virtual vortex was disabled and we couldn't access our speaker, which would have made us 11 countries from throughout the world. And while this digital transformation, it's a bit of challenge for, not a big, but that is an extreme challenge for all of the world. Once we know how to use the tools, like here, we can bring together many countries real time. One of the speakers asked me, what is the latency from Canada? The speaker asked, so what is the latency if it is a second or if it's more than that? And we couldn't feel any latency. It was like 200 milliseconds and we're all live, where the data is traveling around the world. And this is great. And I know that people now are forced to use digital tools and they know that the tools are there and they work. So we have been hosting this on Microsoft Teams live, and it is a great platform that we are using, and you can use it too. But about this, we will talk a bit further. Few words about my side. Name's Davis, and I was the moderator for event, and I have been engaged into startups and technology since 6 years, 7 years. I don't remember now. Previously, I was managing the business incubator of University of Latvia, working with the students, helping them develop the products. Then I was the managing director at Tech Hub Riga, which is the startup community core of Latvia, and we were hosting events and helping startups grow. And now I have my own company where I help entrepreneurs start businesses in Latvia. So it grew to the factor that if I was helping others previously, now I'm helping others outside the NGOs as well. But enough about me. I am not the most interesting part at this bootcamp. We started the bootcamp with the premise, based on data as well, that the data is there, but insights are not. Meaning that many of the organizations already collect data, and there is lots of data. Sometimes even there's so many data that big corporations get into trouble because they have been collecting data illegally without the permission from the data subjects. And it turns out that by Harvard Business Review, you can cross-check everything which is on the slides and on the presentations, that they found out that the technology is not the biggest challenge for building a successful data culture, but rather 93% of the respondents identified that people and process issues are the obstacle. So technology is there, technology works, but the people are the obstacles. So we were exploring all the options that how to get the data and how to move away from Excel to something more powerful and generate automative reports that are not manually calculated all of the times. Let's go to the highlights of the bootcamp. So we had more than 23 speakers. So we bunched up together highlights from the bootcamp, which you can follow up and use. And you can still ask questions on the right side of the screen from me here, and I will go through them after the highlights. So if you're interested in anything, and we have the rest of the team as well to answer technical questions or about the submission deadlines, because this is the last session live. The session is live, but this is the last live session before the end of submission period, which will be in 2 days. So no more sessions until this one. The first one, we were joined by the leader of Riga Power BI Meetup Group, Latvia, and our Power BI Mastermind, one of two that we had throughout the bootcamp, Aldis Ērglis. Aldis Ērglis was with us out of 9 days. He was about 5 days with us every day with the sessions and showed us demos so smooth that it was meditating. So if you just were returned after a coffee break, which you hadn't finished, you could just drink coffee and see Aldis Ērglis work seamless demos with Power BI and how everything works. One of the quotes that he said is that Power BI is like Excel on steroids. And this was his first session on day 1. And then we Then the questions from the audience arose from people who hadn't used Power BI any before. So he introduced the Power BI, and we talked about that even if you haven't used Power BI ever, you can. The learning curve is steep. If you understand some Excel, that is okay, and you can start working on the report. And even in 2 weeks' time, you can not believe what you can make in 2 weeks' time. And he was leading many sessions on sales reporting, sales team management, what visuals to use, etc. And regarding sales team management, that previously it was how it's in normal organizations work, that the sales executives, they are forced to do manual reports, mostly with Excel, and no one likes it. And he was showing examples how you can automate all the reports and release the resources that you have assigned to sales teams. And all of these presentations were recorded, so you can go back and log in the platform at zoomcharts.bi and go through the sessions again. So if you're interested in the sales team management, that was on last week on day 3, if I'm not mistaken. So you can go through the presentation again. And Aldis was leading many sessions throughout the bootcamp, and one thing which he reminded us from day to day is that yes, one picture tells more than 1,000 words, but only if you know how to read it. Because while you can just look at the picture and don't get any actionable insights, if you know how to read the picture, then you save lots of resources. And but you must know how to read it. So there is some, of course, skills which you can develop in working with the BI tools. And lastly, Aldis was talking about predicting the future with data. And there's the saying that the best predictor for the future is the past. Of course, nothing is 100% certain. Almost nothing. I will not tell you what is 100% certain. But once you are predicting the future, you have to be very careful that the correlation doesn't cause causation. This seems like a rookie mistake which you can make, but it is always nice that people answer this one. And the mistake he wrote, he told us about, was that there is statistically significant data that eating more chocolate leads to a higher chance in obtaining the Nobel Prize. I was like, okay, Davis, don't do it. But I was thinking that if I ate more chocolate, that would increase my chances of getting a Nobel Prize. But correlation doesn't cause causation. Next highlight, we were joined by Rihards Garanč, who is the founder at Data Lab LLC from Latvia. The first session which he talked to us about was about data storytelling. Yes, the data is there, and data analysts are there. Data analysts love data. Data analysts, if they chose how the world works, they could make 7 pages of reports with 150 KPIs. But in the end, for the person who is reading the report, you must imagine that the person is reading a story, And if he's reading the story, you as the data scientist, you must write the story. So you can brush up on that session again on data storytelling, which was very important. And then Richard joined us for another day, where he showed us in practice the 5 database rules you can see on the slides. The first one, you have to remove duplicate rows. Then you have to remove redundancies, columns. Then you have to split columns as much as possible to gaining new perspective. Then only aggregate columns kept in the database, which is tricky. And if not possible, then you must indicate the columns kept. And 5, lastly, set data type for all columns. So this is the mandatory homework of cleaning your data. And then once you get this done, then all of the report, it's more significant. And while before cleaning the database, you could, talking from the sales perspective, you might think of very crazy opportunities, but then after you clean the data, if something sounds too good to be true, 99% of the cases it is. Next, we had the founder, the co-founder and the co-owner and CEO of ZoomCharts joining us, and that presentation was with referencing films and movies, and we didn't expect to see such a real life story, because Yanis started the presentation out that once we are children and we're small, how we explore the world is through touch. We touch things, and if it's hot, then we learn to never touch that again. And if it's nice, then we can continue exploring the world. And Yanis showed examples on how you can dig deeper with data just by a touch. Because if previously touch was not possible to go into data analytics, now it is. It brings a complete game changer to how you can work with data and how easily it is to access it. And yes, the highlight from this is that we explore the world around us with a touch. Yanis was talking about children, but also not only children can explore the world that way. Then we had the art director, not a data scientist, join us from Cube Latvia, Kristaps Steimanis. And he reminded us that design is not art. There were many questions throughout the bootcamp that how to design the best reports, what do we have to take into the account, what about colors, patterns, and typography. And Kristaps told us all of the things. And he started with the premise that better design equals better communication. And once you can communicate the report to the final user of the tools, then it's a complete, and then it is a complete success. We were talking about colors, how do they change around cultures, and patterns, typography, hierarchy, and white space. And regarding the colors, you must take a look at the presentation again, how only by changing the colors, the whole communication of the report changes. So once you are submitting your final reports on Sunday morning, think about the colors, not just only pure data. Next up, we had the head of data analytics solutions department at Alva Baltic, Richard Stima, join us, and we were talking about the use case of Microsoft Dynamics 365, how it saves time and resources. We went through the example that previously, say 10 years ago, the executive approached the data analyst or the sales executive and told, hey, please bring me that and that data. It took many hours and stress and resources of the employees just to return back that one number. So there were two issues. First, to having more than 2 hours of resources spent, and second, that once you spend that time, that is not interactive. You have only one number, and that is it. But with the Microsoft Dynamics 365, Alva Baltic has set it up so that the executives themselves, even if they're not data analysts, they can get data themselves. So first, it's real time. They spend just a few minutes and they can get the data they need. And secondly, they don't need to take resources away from their employees. So saving time and resources, if you set up a nice BI in your organization, that is so worth it. Then we had the speaker from Lithuania join us, who is the business consultant at Analytics and Power BI Meetup Group lead in Lithuania, Adas Kasirauskas. And he was mentioning that all of the tools that they helped to install at their clients helped to bring the organization to another level. Because if previously people are still using Excel, and even some of them manually updating Excel and emailing Excel, people are still doing that. These days, then just by implementing BI, you can bring the organization to another level. And we explored an example, and there were many questions on how big of a team you need, what is the time period, what are the resources required. And he showed us an example that only one person from a mid-sized corporation automated all of the reports in 2 years. So one person, 2 years. That, of course, varies throughout the organizations, but 2 years, even less than that, we have had another speaker, which I will talk about later, do that with the organization. So if you have 3 people, then in 1 year you can do an incredible amount of bringing the organization to the next level, saving resources, and automating the reports. Then we traveled to practical demo sessions on how to use Zoom charts the correct way. And the first was about reimagining the donut visual. Donut visual is the one which we had been using since primary school, since we were 10 years old. And previously, it took some time to make. And now, once we're grown up, we still use the donut visual, but we mostly use it incorrectly. And the automation at Zoom charts, it helps us to prevent mistakes. That is first. And secondly, it adds the multi-layers that you can explore with touch. You can see the GIF here that while just having one visual, you can play around and touch and explore data endlessly. And Ivis led many sessions and helped us answer the questions that we had struggling with our reports. And the overall suggestion is to never create reports without a purpose. Just if your executive asks something, then you still should check for a purpose, not just to create something. And generic reports with no target audience is a complete waste of time and resources. So imagine the last time that you were spending some hours on an Excel sheet, and then it turned out that it wasn't understandable for the target audience. And throughout the bootcamp, we got the notion that you must know for whom you're making the reports. And if that requires some setting up, even spending 1 year of setting up, that you must go to interviews with all of the people who are in the target audience, and then develop the tools, not just develop a tool without a purpose and waste time and resources. And the last from Ivis was that the interaction is the key to finding actionable insights. If previously there was no interaction, everything was manual. If you spent hours to getting one insight and you wanted another insight, you had to spend more hours to getting just that one insight. But now if you get all of the BI together, you can touch and interact around and find actionable insights in minutes, even seconds, if you know how to do it, and everything is live. We were very happy to having all of the demo sessions and showing how everything works in real time. None of the demos was pre-recorded, just one from our Lithuanian guest, but he explicitly noted. And the rest of the demos we were experiencing in real life and in real time, and we got the emotions when sometimes the database was loading just a bit too long, and we just loved the experience of the bootcamp with that. Next, we virtually visited Canada, where we had the pleasure of hosting the Microsoft Most Valuable Professional, or MVP, Senior Director at North America Stridley Solutions, and the founder of his own business consulting agency, Insight to Actions, Vivek Patel. And we saw the experience story of mobile-friendly reports, when if you set everything up correctly and install Power BI app on your smartphones, then yes, you don't need to take your big big monitors with 30-inch screen or your heavy laptops, you can just play around and send executives reports on their phones. What is very interesting about this is that while this worked in Vivek's case, and he has clients around the world who demand mobile-friendly reports, one of the sessions we had later in the bootcamp this week, we asked about what about mobile-friendly reports, and they saw from Denmark that the data doesn't support their notion into investing into mobile reports. There's a first comment. Yes, the session is real life. I will just now prove it. So there's a question of thank you. The days passed quickly and the lectures were very special. I took advantage of the lessons and we had fun with you with Google Translation. Thank you very much. Everything is recorded on the platform as well. And yes, we still have 10 minutes, a bit less. So use the opportunity to ask questions and we will answer them. This is a real time. Thank you for the nice comment. So yes, you must know who the target audience is. So for the previous slide from Ivis, so if you create reports with no target audience, you will waste time and resources. In Vivek's experience story, the target audience liked mobile reports and to viewing them on the mobile. But in the other case of our speaker in Denmark, it didn't show significantly that people are using the reports on mobile. So know your target audience. Next up, we had the pleasure of hosting the corporate account marketing communications in Eastern Europe, Microsoft from Hungary, Paul Oras, and he reminded us the importance of a single page dashboard. We have many competencies of attendees here, and some of us, we want to create the most hardest possible dashboard and the report that we can. But in the end, the target audience will be reading it. And if you cannot put it on one page, one single page dashboard, then it's a very low possibility that people will understand it. So try to explain all your data to a 5-year-old. If you can do it, and if you can put it on one single page dashboard, then you will be just fine. Next, we had the pleasure of hosting the business development manager from Malport, Latvia, Artūrs Lazdekauns, who was talking about setting KPIs. And the first was that the common misconception about sales, or people who are not working in sales or who want to help sales implement the solutions, they think that sales are all the same, but they are not. So sales processes differ. I know from working at my own previous the organizations where we were helping startups. For some of the startups, the sales cycle was 1 year. So if you sent an email now on the May 29th, you could expect closing the contract in May 2021. So for that, you have to take it into account once you're setting up the BI, because it's not all the same. And then for some, the sales cycle would be a week for a B2B software. So you could have it not in May 2021, but just now in a week. And second thing, again, this notion goes throughout the bootcamp, is that regarding KPIs, less is more. Yes, we know that you can calculate and track 20 KPIs, but then if your target audience gets lost, then it's no use to tracking these 20 KPIs. We were talking even about 2 or 3 important. To starting, that is okay, and it is not rocket science. Not sure if we added the highlight of not rocket science in this presentation, but 2 speakers independently from each other reminded us that this is not rocket science. It might look like rocket science, but once you start just with the minimum and go further, then in 2 years, it will look like rocket science, but you will understand the rocket science. So in 2 years, you can do a lot. Moving on, we hosted Alex McCurdy from the UK, who's an IT service manager at Eurospan, who's talking about media, publishing and data analysis in media publishing. And he reminded us that the successful BI solution should deliver on first, cost, second, relevancy, third, accessibility, fourth, distribution, then 5, timeliness, and the 6, scalability. So six things in total. And you can rewind the session again to look in the details and his suggestions on how to tackle each of the case. Then we had a marketer joining us, who is the head of marketing agency iProspect Latvia, Aleksandrs Pasters, and he reminded when he's working with data, so if you put garbage in, you will take garbage out. There's no such thing as putting garbage in and getting some jewels out. So be very careful with your data. You can scroll some slides back. Richard Garanch had nice suggestions on how to clean your data before getting insights. So if you have garbage and you're not very careful on how you get the data, then it will remain garbage even after you try to get insights from that. So you will get a garbage as an insight. Don't do that. Then we traveled to Estonia when we were joined by the product manager at Pipedrive, Seda Sarhiedan. And she reminded us that switching from only tracking outcomes to monitoring more diverse metrics can help sales managers improve the sales process, the whole performance of the team, and boost company revenue. And she reminded us that now normally people track only the final sum in sales process. So was there a sale or not? Did they close a contract for worth 10,000 euros or not? But how SEDA helps the product at Pipedrive team manage it is that they not only track if the sale was successful or it hasn't been made yet, but they take a look at all of the process. So not only was there a sale or not, but they track into and they take into account, so what are the steps, how many steps has the potential customers took, why they haven't bought yet, and then they are separating everything. So what was the case? That if you just think that people don't buy from you and they will never buy from you, that is a big mistake. So unless they explicitly tell you that they will not buy and they will not unsubscribe, you will earn money if you invest in business intelligence that tracks this whole process, even for customers who haven't bought yet and they are on your platform for months. More comment, not so questions, but had amazing sessions. Hope to see new presenters next year. Thank you. For those of you who will and must and want to receive reminders, so sign up on the newsletter on the website, and so that if anything happens, you will be the first to know. Moving on, a few more minutes. Then we traveled to Russia. We had the modern workplace specialist from Microsoft Central and Eastern Europe, who reminded that Microsoft Teams and workplace analysis now are a must-have tools for remote workers. If previously, even before the pandemic, we were not that aware of Microsoft Teams, but now these 4 months have changed the whole world. And Tanya told us that Microsoft are investing heavily in Microsoft Teams, and we can feel it. Because now, when everybody around the world uses Microsoft Teams, we don't have any lag or problems or issues or bugs. So they are walking the talk. And if you now use Microsoft Teams just to listen to the seminar, you can try it out on your company's account as well to interact with each other. Then we had a session on Power Apps, and joined by the Power Platform technical specialist at Microsoft Russia, Central Eastern Europe, Yulia. And Yulia mentioned that Power Apps will be a compulsory skill for everybody, just like Microsoft Office is now. It seemed like a very big premise, so we looked into deeper about it, and it turns out that yes, data is significant, that demand for skillful workers who know how to implement Power Apps is growing higher than that of Power BI 5 years ago. So Power Apps, the demand for the skills, it's now growing faster than Power BI, and Power BI, you know where it is now. It's a global. I want to find a better word than tool, but maybe later. So you know what Power BI is. Power BI is a game changer. Let's call that. Then moving on to some machine learning. Yesterday we had Igor Smacinch, who is the head of engineering excellence for Emergent, joining us, and he told that even if we don't know how to code machine learning, and many of us don't, in the Azure cognitive services, there's the option of enabling auto machine learning option, which enables you to execute traditional algorithms like binary prediction and regression modeling easily without coding. So if this a few years ago, binary prediction was demanded, but it was very hard to implement, then now all of the code is set up for you. You need to fine tune just a few more lines, and you can get the machine learning AI algorithm out at your company's computers. Then we had the first lawyer. Yesterday we had the first and only lawyer joining us for the sessions, who reminded of that in January 2020, so-called omnibus directive, or the enforcement and modernization directive, came into place, which will, if you trade with digital goods online, or physical goods but online, and sell it internationally through the internet, or if you have a website, and everybody has a website, and if you're dealing in the EU, so that your client countries will be the EU, which is the largest, taking all of the countries together, market in the world, there will be the death of fake reviews, and there will also be banning the deletion of negative comments online, and the notion of price will be reimagined, because now if you use a product for free, the company doesn't tell you that they are actually selling your data to someone. That is in poor wording lost into the terms and conditions. But in less than 2 years, if you offer a service for free, quotation marks, then you must explicitly tell your clients that, hey, this is free of charge, but we are using your data to tailor you ads, and we're effectively selling the data. So take into a look of the omnibus directive and prepare. While 2 years might seem a long period of time, if you're just setting up your sales in the European Union, definitely go, look up omnibus directive. Then we had the company use cases and speakers joining us live. And first, we had the decision analyst at Chevron from the USA, Scott Milan, joining us. It was 5:15 a.m. in the morning when he was up and joining us live, when it was 11 or 12 in the afternoon at ours time, which was great. And he talked about the capabilities that we are now able to unlock through the visualization. So his topic was using Power BI to visualize the value chain. If you're seeing the graph, so it's like from A to Z, the value chain, it's taking around the reports. And first, he showed how to unlock visual representation. Second, search and data exploration. Third, aggregated calculations. And fourth, context-sensitive tooltips using measures. Then we traveled to Thailand when we had the pleasure of having a Q&A session with the data scientist at Thai Beverage Logistics Thailand, Tavan Tantikul. And he's the data scientist at the second largest beverage wholesaler in Thailand, and we were talking about sales and inventory control, that it turns out that there is no point to using the tools or using the resources if the employees are not ready for it. He mentioned that his organization didn't have problems, but he knows of others that the tools are there, but people are not ready to working with it. And then they know that the executives want to invest in BI, but then in the end, it is not working out and people are not using it. So, and there was a question, okay, so you are sending your specialists to the field to gather data. How do you ensure that the data is clean and valid? And they built an in-house, custom tool to checking for the cleanness of data, which we found very interesting. Then we traveled to Denmark with a talk with the co-owner and director at Workplan about BI as a service, so in-house versus outsourcing. And while there were many pros for outsourcing, there are also many pros for in-house, because in-house that is just your only task, and you're focusing 100% on in-house building great BI tools. But in outsourcing, if you're using a consultant, it could be so that you are one of his 100 clients. I'm over exaggerating, but you are not getting the full head-on attention that you might need. And lastly, we had the session with Eliseo Santos, who is the business intelligence advisor at Arkin, the Netherlands. And Arkin is a healthcare organization. They have many institutions in the Netherlands, and they serve more than 35,000 clients per year. And while for us it seemed very counterintuitive that people are investing heavily in BI, and it turns out that all of the 1,000 employees, they are using the reports real time, and everything works. And we asked, why was it a success from day one? Yes, previously we asked the question to another speaker, how many iterations of the reports did you make? The previous speaker said 13. So from first version to 13, that the last one was accepted. And we asked that to Eliseo. That was, I think, with the second or the third already. So then we understood, so how can it be so good, and what did you do? And he told easily that implementing business intelligence was a success because we were closely working with the employees who will be using the reports from day one. So the software developers, data analysts, machine learning specialists, they are the engineers of the whole program, but they were talking with the employees who are maybe not software developers, but who will just be using the reports from day one. So they were developing it together with the not so technical employees, and that was a success. On that note, we would like to end the highlights and remind to you, if you want to start implementing new business intelligence solutions, do so, but work closely and know your target audience. Know exactly who will be the employees in your organization who will be using the report. Because if you create just by thinking that they will definitely like it, I like it, they will also like it, but if you don't ask them, it's a very high possibility that they will not like them. You can access all session recordings on zoomcharts.bi once you log in. You can click on the calendar and see sessions live video. Not live, the recording from the live. So all of them now. So if you can go through all of these or check with Eliseo or all of the Q&A sessions, then you can see the session recordings on zoomcharts.bi. Before we wrap up, these are the 3 important dates you must know. So first is in less than 2 days, the report submission deadline to entering the contest with the prize pool of total of 10,000 euros is on this Sunday, May 31, 11:59 in the morning or 12 p.m. in the morning, GMT +3. So on Sunday morning, GMT +3, you must have submitted the deadline, and do not start submitting the report at 11:50. There is some chance that your internet will crash or the computer will crash, and then you will email us about, hey, can you please accept our submission report? My computer crashed and I missed the deadline. Sorry, no. So please start report submissions earlier than 10 minutes before the deadline. Then you're invited to attend the business masterclass, where on next Wednesday, we will explore through the top 10 sales reports who are going for the win, and the starting of the business vote. Because yes, not only ZoomChart partners and Microsoft Baltics and Ernst & Young auditors, they will vote for the best 3 reports, but also you, participants, who are now watching this, you will be also assigned the options to voting for the top 10 best reports. Yes, our partners and Ernst & Young will have one weight of the votes, but you can also vote. So choose your best, who you think is worthy of winning top 3. And then the business vote and the sales reporting vote will end. And on next Friday, we will have the award ceremony, which we are looking forward to. And that will be the closing ceremony of this nice 2.5-week bootcamp online. Thank you very much for participating. Just if you didn't know that, you rock. And if you have any questions, please send them to info@zoomcharts.bi. Mind the deadline. It is in less than 2 days. Don't submit your reports 10 minutes before this session. And we were very happy to hosting this event for you. And I will stop on the slides. Yes, and this was a pleasure to hosting for. It was a pleasure to me to host all of these, all of the sessions for over 9 days, and use all these tools. Use the opportunity to send an email and get an answer if you're stuck in your process of making the report, because this does not happen so quickly. Zoom charts people and Microsoft people, they're not bored usually. So if you think that, hey, maybe in 6 months I will use this question that I wanted to ask throughout the bootcamp, then there's a very high possibility that the train had been departed and you were losing the opportunity to ask your questions. And on this note, which is my suggestion to everybody to ask questions and use the opportunity, I wish you a very productive half of weekend. Don't miss the deadline. Remember all of the suggestions from highlights that the speakers told you, and you can go through this session as well at the recording in one working day if you want to brush up on the suggestions from the speakers. So take the suggestions from the speakers into account, and that will increase your chance of winning the competition. Thank you from my side. We will see each other on Wednesday. You are invited, so best of luck to everybody, and have a nice weekend. Bye-bye.